Jean's by-election win his springboard into UCP leadership race, written by our friend Lorne Gunter, senior columnist with the Edmonton Sun, who joins us now via Skype. Lorne, great to see you again. I love the first line of your column, "Let the regicide begin." You don't see that word a lot. That feels sort of Shakespearean. That means killing the king, right? That's what Brian Jean wants to do.
He does. He's made no bones about it, and he has even said many times since he won the by-election that on Tuesday that he's there to get rid of Jason Kenney. He's going to stop the NDP from becoming the government of Alberta again, which he thinks would be disastrous, and I think he's right. He's going to stop the NDP by getting rid of Jason Kenney, because Jason Kenney's the leader of the UCP. He believes the NDP will win.
Well, there's a chance of it. I mean, the polls are pretty atrocious. I just mentioned, and by the way, Kenney's poll numbers are actually improved from their rock bottom low a few weeks ago. I mean, he has taken his foot off the gas of the lockdowns, and I know that, I know that many Albertans say, hey, it was never as bad a lockdown in Alberta as it was in, let's say, Quebec, where they actually had nighttime curfews, if you can believe it. But I don't think comparing yourself to the worst of Canadian premiers is what Albertans want. I mean, listen, I'm out here in exile in Toronto, but it seems to me that Alberta's motto is strong and free. And Jason Kenney in particular had a reputation as someone with a light touch, not a heavy-handed authoritarian approach. I think that while it may have been less worse than other provinces, I think he truly let down conservatives in this country. Well, he was supposed to be the Ron DeSantis, and he never was.
What he did, we can argue about and probably should have a discussion about what he did right and what he did wrong, and what if there's another wave or another pandemic with another disease, what Alberta should do next time, or shouldn't. Maybe even better, what Alberta shouldn't do next time that it did this time. But I think Kenney's biggest single fault through the pandemic is not necessarily the individual steps that he took, but not bothering to explain them much to Albertans, not bothering to go to the people of the province and say, hey, look, I know you don't like this, but here's why we're doing this, and here's how we're going to come out of this. And he didn't spend a lot of time being the leader. One of the people I know who is close to him said what he was trying to do was become Dr. Kenney. He wanted to become the expert on the pandemic in Alberta, and he already had one of those in Dina Hinshaw, who was actually fairly good, I thought, among all of the provincial chief medical officers. She was the best. I mean, again, we're comparing her to people who weren't that good, but nonetheless, Alberta went through this fairly lightly. We have a lower case fatality rate on the pandemic than Ontario and Quebec. You're not going to hear that from very many sources, because the CBC in particular and the Toronto Star love to think that Alberta was this horrible wasteland of death and disease. And we did have one really awful wave back last fall. But for the most part, life has gone on here fairly normally, with the exception of the vaccine mandate for an awful lot of people in their workplaces, which really rankled a lot of Albertans, and the vaccine passport, which indirectly did its job. The British government brought it in to encourage more people to go get vaccines. And I have a nephew who, no, I'm not getting the vaccine. No, that's silly. I'm not. I read online where that's just that poison they're putting in your arms. And then he couldn't get into the bar with his friends because of the vaccine passport. He said, yeah, okay, I'll get a vaccine. So that's why the province did that. But Kenney did not use the forum that he has to explain that, and he just looked like he was disappeared during the pandemic, and I think that's what's put a lot of people off.
Well, I mean, your example of a nephew who may not have had a deeply thoughtful reason for objecting, but even your example shows that it was the duress, it was the pain, the social pain, that it was not because you're protecting the world in any particular way. It was just, and that's what I think irked me the most, if I may. That's an excerpt from my daily show, The Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.